In this video, I'm going to be talking about why it's so important to remain grounded in a high voltage world. Hi, my name is Nancy Rebecca, and welcome to my channel. And today I'm going to be talking about grounding because recently I had someone who wrote to me personally, and let's see exactly what the question was. It was, "Hello. What could be the cause of some people electrically shocking others, appliances, electronic goods breaking? Could it be that they're not using their energy in the flow, either through healing or some such, or they needed to be grounded more?" I would love to know what your take is on this. Well, often you can be just simply walking across the room and zap, you've got sparks that come off of your fingers and jolt like static electricity. Or perhaps the lights flicker when you're just walking through a room. Maybe your new phone stops working, or all of your appliances seem to break all at the same time. What if I told you this is not a coincidence, that there's a reason for that? Well, hang in there with me as I give you a few examples, a few little stories, and what you can do about it if you're noticing that you have probably a higher voltage of energy coming through than normal. Because our bodies are just like power grids. And just like a power grid is connected to the world's energy, we can have surges and power grids can come out. Well, your human body is exactly the same. So what was my answer? My answer was, often it's an inability to ground off high surges of energy in the body. Without appropriate grounding for your energy levels, your energy can shoot out in all directions. And she did write back and said, that makes a lot of sense. And so I thought, well, if she has that question, I imagine there's a lot of you out there who are having similar questions. So I have written several pages of notes that I will refer to, be looking down at. So you have an aura, an energy field. So just for those who may be tuning in and you know nothing about energy fields, I am a registered nurse. I am able to use my clairvoyance to see energy fields. This ability to become suddenly sighted happened after I had an out-of-body experience back in 1994. So you have an aura, which is an energetic field, an energetic grid. You've got your chakras. You have kind of the meridians, acupuncture in Chinese medicine. You've got meridians and you've got acupuncture points. And all of these require an electrical impulse to keep everything active and keep every part of who you are, keep you energized and in the flow, and keep you firing on all cylinders. Your human energy field is like a power grid that lights up. So imagine Christmas lights. So for any of you who celebrate Christmas, or even if you don't celebrate Christmas and you've pulled out strings of lights and you notice that the whole string of lights that you've had either stored in the attic or in the basement, you pull it out of the box, you go to plug it in before you're going to hang these lights, and you notice the whole string is gone. Well, in the olden days when I was young, it could be one little bulb on that string of lights that's out. But wow, you could go bulb by bulb and would have a hard time determining which bulb went out, because if you could replace that one bulb, then the entire string of lights would come on. Do you remember that one? Well, then they decided to kind of upgrade how they made these strings of lights, and then it might just be a segment that goes out, but there wasn't going to be a lot you could do about that segment. You kind of try to hide it off in the background. So just like Christmas lights, if you don't tend to your own energy field, mostly because you just don't know about it, if you don't tend to it to keep the keep it nice and clear and any of the heavy, thick energy cleared off, then when it comes to that one type of time of year when you pull those Christmas lights out, or that you're going to tend to your own energy field, you might find that you need to do a few repairs. You need to get it cleaned up. You need to get it brightened up and illuminated and get all the lights working. So, okay. So grounding is a stabilizing power. Now, you may often hear about grounding, and we can hear about those like magnetic pads that you can stand on, or some people get those little magnetic pads that you put on the bed. You can still really go out in nature and get well grounded by being around a strong root system. You can take your shoes off and just bury your feet in the grass. All of those are ways to help get yourself really grounded. And what grounding does is it helps stabilize your physical body so that, let's say you're out for a walk or you're going down a little steep hill and you're hiking, it's going to help keep your legs and your hips over each other, keep you quite stabilized when you're walking. The more grounded you are, the more stabilized your entire body is. How about those out of control emotions that are all over the place? Being well grounded helps stabilize those emotions so they're not shooting out everywhere like electrical sparks. It's the same, oh my gosh, with our mind, especially in our Western culture, we are big thinkers. And whenever I see the auric field of someone who thinks a lot, it actually looks like a light bulb. It's like the auric field will go right below the feet, but when it gets up around the head, there's this big bulging open. And so whenever I see that, and I'll say, wow, you think a lot, don't you? And they're like, yeah, how did you know? And it's like, because there's just so much energy up around the head. Well, if you don't have that grounding helps pull that energy back down again so you don't have those racing thoughts. So grounding really helps stabilize you. Now, what exactly is grounding? It's an invisible force that, like, for example, you can pretend like you're a tree with a deep root system, and you can just imagine you're this tree. Even like right now, while you're listening to me, you can pretend and imagine that you're this tree. And then you're going to imagine that you've got deep, deep roots, and maybe you've got 100 large roots that you're going to sink deep into the earth. And the deeper you sink those roots in, the more solid and stable your entire energy field is. And we wonder, how is it that we can feel more stable just by imagining a root system? Well, because we are multi-dimensional beings. And so we can have our physical body, but we have our spiritual body, and we have that energy field, that energy force. So it's like that quantum field where you're setting the intention. I'd like to be more grounded. I need to be more grounded. I'm imagining a deep, strong, stabilizing grounding. Well, in the quantum world, everything shifts to help you to become more grounded. So a tree is a really favorite way that a lot of people will work with that particular grounding energy. So when I'd had my out-of-body experience, so this was in 1994, I did start to take classes, but before I started taking classes on how to ground, I ended up going to this spiritual church because I was quite frightened, if I can be honest with you. I didn't know what was happening to me. I had never heard of an aura. I had never heard of chakras. I didn't know, honestly, I was in my late 20s. I didn't know that angels existed. I just was so naive and unfamiliar with all of these things. So imagine this flash of light. I pop out of my body, and then when I pop back in again, now I can see spirits, and I can see auras, and I can see chakras. So When that happened, I was really frightened because I am a registered nurse. So I thought I was kind of losing my mind. I thought I was becoming mentally unstable. So by this time now, I've gone to the spiritual church and they helped me to ground. And I remember my body felt so heavy. I didn't even think I was going to be able to stand up. And they said, yep, that's normal. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I can't stand up. I can barely walk. My body feels so heavy. And they said, well, that's because you're not used to feeling your body and you're not used to feeling grounded in your body. And so as a nurse, I wanted to learn more about how is that this invisible force possible. All right, so I started taking classes on how to do this. And I was just learning about what had happened in my life. I was trying to manage everything as things were swirling around. And I began to notice that when I walked into a room, all the lamps started flickering, or even the ceiling lights started flickering. And I thought, well, that's odd. And of course, that's a little scary because we always kind of think of flickering lights as ghost, which is what I thought. But then what happened was the heat pump to my house, the motor blew up, it broke. My brand new computer blew up, it broke. I mean, it was fried. There was nothing fixable about it. I had a well, so I got my water from well water. So the motor for the well broke, so there was no water to my house. And it didn't even stop there. The alternator to my car blew up as well. Now that's some potent energy. It was actually adding up to about $10,000 in repairs, and I had no idea what was happening to me. I couldn't understand it. And so I happened to mention, I was talking to a new energy friend, and this new energy friend was a fellow hospice nurse with me. And I was explaining that I've been having all this stress happening, and I'm trying to figure out how to meditate, and I'm trying to figure out how to manage that I can see energy, and I don't know what to do with all this stuff. And my family and my husband and my kids are thinking I'm crazy. My friends are thinking I'm crazy. I mean, it was a lot to deal with. So my friend told me, and so then I said about everything that was going haywire, all electrical things. So she said, sounds like you need more grounding to support all the stress that you're going through. I didn't know what that totally meant, and I most certainly had a lot of doubts about if that was even possible, that my energy, my invisible energy, could blow up appliances. So she recommended that I go get an energy balancing treatment from someone, which I did. And after that happened, I felt my stress was gone. I felt so much better. I felt really solid. And then when I started to try to problem solve how to fix all these things, it all went and fell into place very, very rapidly. So it was a big challenge for me to connect the dots, but I did. So one of the biggest challenges often that therapists will have when they're working with brand new clients is teaching them how to begin to manage their emotions. Because let's say that you get really angry or you're just really frustrated. If I'm looking So let's say if I'm looking at your energy field and you are angry, it will look like this red surge, like a volcanic eruption that comes up and out the top of the head, and it can just shoot in all directions. Let's say that I feel like my power is being abused, or someone has crossed a boundary again for the 10th zillionth time. You're going to have a lot of like these lightning bolts are going to shoot out of your third chakra. If you are emotionally triggered, whether it's sadness or grief or jealousy or anything that's got you really emotionally triggered, those emotions are just going to shoot straight out throughout the whole entire room. And so when you're learning how to start to manage your energy, often if I'm feeling overwhelmed with some emotions, just last week I was feeling very overwhelmed with emotions. It's like I just go down and I close the door and I sit, and I'll just say I pretend like I'm a tree and those roots need to go a little bit deeper. Does that make the anger go away? Does it make the emotions go away? Does it make those lightning bolts that come out go away? Or maybe this kind of mental angst that, you've got lightning bolts coming off your head. It doesn't help you to have that go away. And you don't really want it to go away because your mind serves a purpose to give you some direction and help you sort out things, and your power and your boundaries. It's like you want to be able to ground off and get your power back. And those emotions, you want your jealousy to teach you something. You want your grief or sadness or anger, whatever it is, to help guide you into your next step. So the best way to do that is to ground it all off. So it's like a power grid in the city. It requires gigantic grounding sources. What do they use? Like normally copper wires to go into the earth. Otherwise, those power grids for the city would be just shooting off all over the place. So this is one of the things that therapists often will start to work with, because there's a lot of things, right, that are happening in your life that are unmanageable. But the one thing that is manageable is how you can manage, with proper tools, how to manage yourself. So when I talk about the therapist is helping you to manage the emotions of what you're feeling and teach you how to manage those emotional reactivities, it helps you to do that before you blow a fuse, a light bulb, or a whole string of lights. If the electrical power to your house is not grounded off, then the electricity can blow a plug, and it can even start a fire if there's just big surges. That's why they've got surge protectors for your computers. Washers, dryers, refrigerators, stoves. Here in the United States, we run off of a primary 110 voltage or 220 voltage of electricity to our houses. So our big appliances require a 220 voltage, and our smaller appliances, like our lamps or this computer that I'm sitting in front of, work off of a 110 voltage. Now, let's say that you try to plug in a 220 volt into a 110 socket. It can cause the whole electrical wiring to blow up. It can cause you to lose all the power to the house. And so this is what happens for the human body, is especially when we're doing a lot of spiritual work and we really want to connect with the cosmos. We want to connect at the galactic levels. We want to connect at the star being levels, cosmic celestial levels, the God light, the angel light, the Mother Mary light, Jesus light, Buddha light. It's just bring me the light, bring me the light, bring me the light. Help me to be more spiritually oriented. It's like this big light bulb, but the base that it's screwed into is just not there, meaning you're grounding. You just don't have enough grounding for as much light as you're bringing into the body. And this is where when I work as a psychic healer, this is some of the main work that I end up doing, is helping people to value their grounding, value your connection with the earth, your the earth energies, your relationship with Mother Earth. To value that as much as you value going up, you want to value it equally going down. So your human body's the same way. During a high frequency, high voltage time, you must have circuits that can handle the high infusion of electricity. And you build this up over time. Like for me, doing a reading on a psychic reading for another person, it requires high voltage focus. Okay. And so when I first began, I could handle that high voltage focus when I did a psychic reading, maybe 2-3 times a week. That was about as much as I could handle because I had a little bit of grounding, and so I could bring in the high voltage, but I needed to have time to build up my grounded strength. And then over about a 5-year period of time, I was able to maybe graduate to doing 2 readings a day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Because remember, there's high spiritual voltage that comes in. So if you're going to sit in front of me and I'm going to spiritually focus and make that connection with your spirit as well, there's a lot of light that comes in to illuminate the truth about what your spirit wishes for you to know. So it's just like going to the gym. You're not just going to enter the Olympics to lift weights if you've never been to the gym before. Well, being a psychic or a healer has those same qualities. You've got to build it up. You've got to practice it. So, you must also have strong grounding capacity to support the high electrical flow. So when I began working with clients, I would often hear them say things like, I just want to be enlightened by Friday. And often anyone who says a request like that has no true sense about what they are asking for, because it takes a lot for your human body to be able to fulfill that promise. Your body and that's what we're doing. We're creating these light bodies to help us to handle higher voltage frequencies. So to reach those heights requires large amount of cosmic energy. The other thing is that we have this sense, this belief system, and it mostly just goes through logic. I don't think anybody ever told me to do this, but I thought if I was spiritual, I need to have my spiritual chakra wide open. The more wide open my spiritual chakra is, the more spiritual I'm going to be. And that just is not true. The more wide open your spiritual chakra is, the more out of your body you are. It's too much high voltage to bring into the body. So you want to just close down your crown chakra a little bit. Now, I'm not going to tell you what's right for you as far as kind of closing it down. But for those of you who are experienced or even not experienced, you can just pretend to just close it down a little bit more. And what happens, you end up coming down into your body, and a lot of that additional light can go down into your root system. And I teach a lot of these details in my classes, and it just so happens that today is the last day to on December 2nd, because I know many of you will watch this later, but I've opened up my Foundational Psychic Mastery 1 class, so registration's still open on the day of this release. But I teach a lot more about opening and closing the chakras to support your spiritual growth. So without enough grounding and earth energy, Your entire nervous system can be overwhelmed and struggle, and you don't want to overwhelm your neurological system. If this goes on for a long period of time, you can find yourself having neurological disorders. And so, what are some neurological disorders? Um, Often it's people who work like around a lot of electricity without grounding off much. But it could be like Parkinson's and MS. And I'm not saying this causes those things, but what I'm saying is it can exacerbate the symptoms of those things. And that what I do when I have people who have neurological disorders come in to see me, I will teach them how to ground, and I will teach them how to bring up more earth energy to calm their nervous system so that those additional symptoms of whatever neurological disease process is going on will be able to calm down. So one really big clue that you don't have enough grounding for the amount of energy flow through your body is you're going to notice the lights flickering around you. So that can be one clue. The other thing is not being able to focus your mind. Your mind is scattered. That's a really good idea that you need a little bit more grounding. Once I had a client who phoned me very distressed, thinking that something evil was following her all around and was impacting her life. So when she came in to see me, she was explaining to me that when she drives down the streets, all the street lights go out. Can you imagine? You're driving down the street and just pop, 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 pop. As you pass underneath the street light, it goes out. Well, she thought something evil was following her and something evil was causing this. So I'm just here to tell you, as a nurse and as someone who can see into the spiritual world, that yes, your own out of control, ungrounded, high voltage energy field can blow out streetlights. So that's what was happening. So we had a session, helped her to get really well grounded, helped her to get the earth energy flowing, and then everything calmed down. I always knew that I needed to get my own grounding improved if lights began to flicker before a client came in. So if I was getting ready for a client and then in my office the lights would begin to flicker, then I knew I better get more grounded before they come in. Or I'd go out to the waiting area to get them and the lamps on each side would start flickering and they were like, okay, this is weird. And I'm like, that's all right. We're going to get you grounded. Don't worry. So we would take steps to help things get calmed down. All right. What are some simple non-energy type things that you can do to help keep yourself well grounded? Well, first of all, try to manage your stress. Try to manage all the things that are going on and see if you can start to cut out some of those things that is keeping your mind wildly taking off with you, and just to see if you can get yourself grounded. So walking in nature, eating root vegetables like sweet potatoes, beets. What are some other really good root vegetables? Squash, things like that. Bare feet and the grassy earth. Pull in your aura closer to your body. You just intend to say, okay, I don't even know what Nancy's talking about, and I don't even know if I can do this, but I'm just going to imagine that my aura is getting closer and closer and closer to my body, and then that way it's not spread out, just shooting volts everywhere. And you can tell when you're shooting volts if someone's standing there talking to you and all of a sudden they do this. Yep, you probably have volts that are shooting, so just get yourself grounded. You can imagine closing down your spiritual chakra more, and you can imagine that you are a tree with deep roots. So those are all some really quick things that you can do. I do want to just add before I finish up here look in the, I don't even know, it's not, there's a link. I'm going to give you a link for a guided meditation you can start listening to every day. I think it's only 15 minutes. Just to help get your grounding sorted and get yourself comfortable and familiar with what it feels like for you to be well grounded. Because we know what it feels like when we're standing next to somebody who's well grounded, and you can easily become one of those people that find grounding an essential part of your life. So we've got lots of vibrational frequencies on the rise, so let's get a handle on that grounding, okay? And I would love to hear any of your light flickering stories or blowing up motors or computers and what you did to resolve it, because I know a lot of people will find it helpful. All right, take care, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.